Today's video explores the parent-child relationship for the manifestor, both from the perspective of a parent who is a manifestor and also about how to parent a child who is a manifestor. This video is already divided into chapters, and you can see that in the timeline as well as the description box below, so you can scroll ahead to the part of the video that's relevant to you. The bottom line of the parent-child relationship for the manifestor, regardless of whether it's you being a manifestor parent or raising a manifestor child, is understanding the impact of the closed, repelling aura and communicating through the strategy of informing to avoid anger and decrease resistance. I'm Karen McMullen, and let's get into today's episode of The Empowered Manifestor. To start, let's review what makes a manifestor a manifestor. A manifestor has a closed and repelling aura. Also, the manifestor has a connection between one of the motor centers other than the sacral center and the throat. This means that they are here to initiate and take action and kind of make things happen. They're also not reliant on others to move through the world. We've already seen in previous videos in this series and gone into depth into how these properties lead a manifestor to making an impact. So let's see how those same concepts apply in the parent-child relationship. Let's start by looking at the role of being a parent as a manifestor. And does being a manifestor and having this closed, repelling aura lead the children of manifestors to have trouble feeling as loved because of this dense, repelling aura?
I am a mom, and for many years I felt inferior to other mothers because I interact differently with the groups of families and maybe interact differently with my own daughter than they're used to. And so I just felt like I didn't fit in, or like I was a bad mom, even though I love my daughter. I tell her all the time, I hug her all the time, I provide for her in all of the ways that a kid needs providing for. I just never felt like it was enough. And now I know, having studied my human design, that it's because I'm a manifestor and I'm not a generator, I'm not a projector. And so, knowing that is a huge relief. And I now know that, the more fulfilled I am as a person, doing the things that I really need to do to be healthy and happy, the better mom I'm going to be for my daughter. And I watch my generator friends sometimes give to their children to the detriment of their own well-being. And I just know that it would never work for me, because I would end up being angry at my daughter because of my own actions to make these sacrifices. So I realize that as a mom and a manifestor, it's important for me, it's like the life mask thing on the plane. I have to put my mask on first so that I can help her put hers on, because if I don't, then we're both going to end up not having what we need.
For example, a very recent incident happened with my daughter. At dinner table, or after dinner, she announced that she was pregnant. And of course, there was a lot of congratulations and we and wow. And then apparently when she told her father, her father cried. And 2 days later, she says, "How do you feel about me expecting a baby?" It's only about 10 weeks old or 12 weeks. 10 weeks old at that time. I said, I'm so happy for you. I'm so happy because I love babies. I like as an observer. And she said, but you didn't say anything at the dinner table. And this is not the first time. So, like, I don't know whether you saw the video I posted in Facebook about my son. You know, how he was giving me a big lecture about not being the mother, the type of mother that is, you know, it's always like a mother hen, because I'm not. But they do complain about it, let's put it this way. So I know what you're talking about this dense hour. Yeah, I do. But I know they also know that when it comes to the crux, I am there anyway. Like, I love my grandchild, but I don't have the relationship that she has, for example, with her father, with her grandfather. Because I'm not the type to keep on cuddling people, you know. So I don't know, but it has not been it is not a problem for me today.
Okay, so I'm a 2 on the Enneagram, which is super nurturing. So I didn't have that. If anything, I was an over nurturer. So she definitely, you know, had a lot of my nurturing feminine, a lot. But what she also had was my anger, my easily angered, because it is true. I would give a lot, and then I would get to a point where I was at a limit, and I didn't inform her, so I would just cut off, or I would let the anger, you know, out of nowhere. I'd be like in this really loving, nurturing space, and then I would reach this limit, and then I would let my anger, like, I'm getting claustrophobic, this is too much, or whatever. So she experienced my anger. That's the biggest complication for her. And you know, again, like I said, she also experienced a lot of my nurturing self. I would say when my daughter was younger, I wasn't living my manifestor self. I didn't even know what that was, obviously, at that time, but I was more into the generator, doing and getting, you know, I was, my husband said I was in charge of everything, you know, just making the household and her life run, because I chose to be a stay-at-home mom. So I was definitely acting as a generator, and then I would get really angry and go a little crazy without my independence. So, you know, so she experienced that back and forth, honestly.
It's tough. I think, honestly, I give her a lot of physical affection. I think that's one of her love languages. So I try to really, you know, I give her lots of hugs, lots of snuggles, lots of kisses, and also words of affirmation. I tell her all the time how much I love her. And I also have talked to her about the fact that I'm a manifestor, and kind of just surface level what that means, so that she can understand me, and so that she doesn't misinterpret my actions sometimes as a lack of love, but that she knows that I need a lot of time and energy for the things that I need to do in a day. And then that doesn't mean that I'm intentionally, you know, ignoring her, neglecting her.
I think that we're seeing through these examples that having a closed, repelling aura doesn't necessarily mean that the children of a manifestor will feel unloved. However, it does need to be taken into account. And as with any relationship for the manifestor, the success of their relationship is really going to depend on them being able to communicate and inform others about what's happening and what's going on. Now let's look at how to raise a manifestor child. First of all, your manifestor child is a manifestor even though they are a child, so they will want to express naturally the sense of freedom and of knowing who they are and where they want to go and what they want to do. And so a part of that, first of all, can be terrifying. Ra talked about how oftentimes when mothers give birth to a manifestor, and the moment the manifestor comes out, the mother is, oh my gosh, here I have this being who is going to be a force to be reckoned with. So that can be frightening and intimidating for the parent of the manifestor. The manifestor child could do things like just run out of the house and go into the woods and want to roam free. And obviously that would cause a mother to panic and say, hey, like, what are you doing? And punish the child potentially. And so what you don't want is to squash your child's sense of freedom and empowerment, but at the same time they need to learn healthy boundaries and how to communicate. So that's a tricky balance. As much as possible, it's ideal to teach your child to inform you when they want to do something, and so to ask permission. That way, if they want to do something, you can have a conversation with them about it and maybe inform them of different things that they might not have considered safety-wise, or the schedule or agenda of the family and how that might impact. Try not to tell them or ask them. Give them information and then leave them to it and allow them the time to process, see if they do make a good decision, and then if you do need to set a rule or a boundary, then I think doing that with as much respect as possible. I was touched by something that Ra said, that basically manifestors are designed to be deeply of service to humanity, and so you can trust in the innate goodness of your manifestor child and really do what you can to build up that sense of them being good and making good decisions on their own.
So common. My mom used to say that about me when I was little. I'd say, Mom, like, why didn't you help me with this or whatever? And she's like, but you always seem so independent. Like I quote fooled her. I'm not fooled her, but she really would just let me do things on my own a lot. And whereas I could have used some guidance, but yeah.
When I was in school, I would just not do my homework and be failing out of my classes and know I was failing out of my classes, but not tell my parents, because I knew if I told them, then they would make me do things that I didn't want to do, which was my homework. So I would just wait until the end of the semester and the report card would come and my parents would freak out and be like, not so much that I was failing, but that I knew I was failing and I didn't tell them. So it was this kind of lacking of information that made my parents really feel crazy. Like, why are you like this? What are we doing wrong? Why wouldn't you tell us? And it was just this fear that if I told them that, the things that I really was passionate about, that I wanted to do, would have to be put on hold so that I could do these things that I needed to do. And so that carried over also into, in my later teenage years, my early 20s, I would go out with my friends or with a guy, and my parents would just call to check up on me to know that I was safe. And I would ignore their phone calls or leave my phone in the car because of this just underlying fear that if I answered the phone, that I would end up having to be somewhere other than where I was. And so I just wouldn't inform them. They would be up, 2, 3, 4 in the morning waiting for me to come home, ready to call the police, and I'd just stroll in. And they'd be like, what the hell? Why didn't you answer our phone calls? And it was just, I couldn't really explain to them why. It was just kind of this instinct to not inform because I didn't want you know, what I wanted to be put on hold. And so informing has become an enormous part of my adult life so that I can maintain successful relationships, because as a young person, it created so much tension in all of my personal relationships to not tell people things when they really did need to know.
Unrelated to the typical human design advice about how to parent a manifestor child, I'll speak from my own experience. My sister has a manifestor child, my nephew, and recently he has been having some challenges, and so we sought out help, and as a family we came together and learned a parenting approach called the Nurtured Heart. The Nurtured Heart approach is a style of parenting, and also for teachers, anyone working with high intensity kids, so kids that are really wanting and seeking high intensity connection. And I will put the links below to an amazing Nurtured Heart teacher who we hired to teach us over, I think, 4 classes. And it was such an amazing approach, and my sister's been using it with my nephew ever since, and it's going really, really well. One of the basic concepts from the Nurtured Heart that I thought to share with you today is the idea that every single interaction you have with your child, you're building their portfolio of themselves. So they have this invisible portfolio that's determining their sense of self-image. So, you know, every time you tell the manifestor, I can't believe you did that, you know, why did you go across the street without asking? You're starting to build a self-image of you're bad, you're rebellious, you don't follow rules. The manifestor will go one of 2 ways with punishment. Either they'll become extremely angry and potentially rebellious, or they can become really meek and just totally disconnected from their power, and either one of those you don't want. So instead, with every opportunity, you're building a positive self-image, like, wow, look, every time they do follow the rules of being safe, for example, you can say, wow, look at how safe you're being, look at how responsible you are, look at that choice that you made that shows that you're really caring and considerate. Thank you for asking me permission. And you're acknowledging every single positive thing that they do, and then stating how that reflects well on their character, and building that portfolio of their sense of goodness. So as far as a manifestor goes, you know, you want to build a portfolio of them having these concepts such as, you know, communicating clearly, thank you for letting me know, informing, being responsible, taking others into consideration in their decisions, and how creative and powerful they are. So any of these positive qualities that you see naturally in your child, just reinforcing them in their own self-image. Teaching your manifestor child really good manners is also going to go a long way to helping them have successful interactions, especially, for example, with teachers, because you know, a manifestor in a classroom can be a challenging situation for the teacher. So if the manifestor has cultivated really good manners and asking permission, it's much more likely that they're going to have a smoother time integrating into the school format. The manifestor does have a closed, repelling aura, which can make socializing a little bit more tricky, and they may not understand why they don't connect as easily as some of their other friends do.
Yeah. And I never understood well, you know, some people like my mom would say, you know, your sisters are afraid of you. It's like, why are they afraid of me? Like it used to just baffle me. Like, why in the world would that be so? And since I've studied human design, I understand more of what that means. It doesn't really mean afraid that I'm going to do something bad, but just afraid that they can't figure me out. And I feel like I'm very easy to figure out, but I get it that I'm learning more. I'm understanding more from understanding the manifestor type.
Also, as a young person, my friends always had boyfriends or love interests, and I never did. All throughout high school and through most of college, I never had boys really pursue me. There were boys that I knew were interested in me, and I could tell, you know, by the way that they behaved around me, but they never made the steps to get close to me like the boys that my friends were involved with did. And so I always felt like, is there something wrong with me? You know, am I ugly? Am I not smart enough? Am I not funny enough? And it wasn't any of those things. It was that, you know, that young boys who are already, you know, easy to spook, I was, you know, feeling this kind of repelling aura telling them, no, don't come close, that was preventing them from getting close to me. I really believe that part of the reason that I was drawn so much to partner dancing is because it forced me to be a part of a bigger group, which wasn't something that ever came naturally to me. And B, because it was a way for me to feel touch, you know, be intimate in a non-sexual way with men, because I, again, was always kind of craving this feeling of having someone to hug or kiss, and I didn't because I was repelling them, but the dancing really fed that part of me, you know, when I was younger, and it still does feed that part of me. So I would say, you know, if you have manifestor children, I think it's really important to get them into group activities, to kind of make them see that there are, you know, that there are things that are bigger than just them and what they want, because even though it's uncomfortable and maybe not natural for manifestors, it's an important part of life. You have to be able to cooperate with a group. And so I think being on team sports or doing, you know, dancing or acting or things where you have to interact with other people or touch other people or be a part of a team is really important for manifestors when they're young, so that they don't really isolate themselves. Because I feel like if I hadn't had dancing, I would have just felt even more isolated than I already did, just because of my aura.
I love Tara's suggestion about getting your manifestor child involved in groups and activities where they're required to be interacting a lot. Another thing that you can guide your manifestor child towards clarity about is understanding their decision-making authority, whether it's emotional, splenic, or ego authority. So I have other videos on my channel about these different authorities that you can watch, and then, you know, in simple words, just helping them learn what is moving them into action. That may or may not be something developmentally that you're able to introduce to them until a certain age, but that's something that you can be, you know, intending as a parent, is to help them see their own inner decision-making authority and how it's kind of inspiring them into action. If you are parenting a manifestor, I can imagine that it might be challenging at times, and so I totally see that. And if you are challenged, you might want to check out the Nurtured Heart approach. So that's all I have for you today. I hope this was helpful, and I would love if you have any other tips for you to share below, and we can really create kind of a dialogue in the comment section. If you like today's video, you'll probably like the other videos in the Empowered Manifestor series, so I invite you to check that out. And also please like and subscribe to my channel. I look forward to seeing you in the next video, and until then, take care.